video is sponsored by MPB. I've been meaning to do this video literally for years, so I'm super duper excited. And what more of a perfect opportunity to test the low light lenses on the Micro Four Thirds system than heading to Norway in December for polar night. If you don't know what that is, it just basically means there is no daylight, so every photo I take, by definition, will be a low light photo. And maybe we'll get some northern lights as well, who knows. So I am armed with some of the very best low light Micro Four Thirds lenses on the system. Some of them are more affordable, some of them are super fancy pants. There'll be something for every budget in this video, worry not. And let's see how they get on. And a quick note, these are by no means the only options available. I just had to narrow it down to a handful, or I would probably still be in Norway now taking photographs. Many other options are available, and if I've missed any of your favourites, let me know as always in the comments. Okay, let's get stuck in. Let's start with the infamous, the delightful, the how the heck have you not reviewed this yet in 7 years on your Micro Four Thirds channel lens, the Voigtlander 17.5mm 0.95 aperture. f0.95. That is exciting to me. Now this lens is built like an actual blooming tank. I think it's one of the prettiest lenses on the Micro Four Thirds system, if that in any way persuades you. It has a clickless aperture ring and it is full manual focus. It is a chunkier boy at 540 grams, but you really can feel the build quality from that. It is built like a tank. There are a couple of different focal lengths in this range of lenses, but I chose a 17.5mm, which gives me a very pleasing, exactly 35mm full frame equivalent. Let's get it out of the way first, shall we? Focusing at 0.95 is a little bit of a bastard. I'm not gonna lie. You're working with such a shallow depth of field, and even on the most extreme settings, the focus peaking in my cameras sometimes gave me a false positive. Sometimes it would say that it's in focus when it wasn't quite. So if you are shooting at 0.95, I would highly recommend utilizing both focus peaking and magnification to double check, because the focus peaking alone didn't quite cut it. But it's dead easy to just sort of punch in quickly and double check, right, we're in focus, off we go. Once I got used to it, it wasn't too bad at all, but I think it's only logical to expect that 1 or 2 photos will be out of focus when you are shooting at such a shallow depth of field. From f2.8, this lens is super duper sharp, and I like that you have maybe more experimental apertures on this lens going all the way down to 0.95, but if you want something that is rock solid and reliable in an everyday circumstance where maybe you don't need those wider apertures, you know that shooting from 2.8 and narrower will give you great results. So it is a very versatile lens and not just a low light beast. And I have to say, I've used some 0.95 lenses in the past, like the Lauer Argus 0.95, and that disappointed me wide open. It was basically unusable. You lost so much contrast, you lost so much edge sharpness, and it was not the one. It was not the one. This, however, at 0.95, your tolerance may... But for my tastes, I think 0.95 did me proud, and I think it's more than usable. It's one of the few lenses where I do think wide open it is usable. If you do want something a little bit sharper, 2.8 is your friend. Next, we have a lens that I've coveted for quite a while, the Olympus 25mm f1.2 Pro. Every Pro Olympus lens I've used has impressed me. This is no different. It's another one that is super good wide open, and it's the kind of lens where you can leave it wide open and just get about with your day. You've got autofocus, so you don't need to worry about nailing the focus too much. The camera can do it for you, and it's a nice standard focal length at 25mm. It is a great sort of walkabout lens in low light, and it is an absolutely epic choice if you want something that's excellent in low light. I am a big fan of the Lumix Leica 25mm f1.4. Of course I am, I talk about it all the time on this channel, but there are 2 reasons why I wanted to take the Pro lens to Norway instead of the Lumix Leica. 1, the Olympus Pro range is weather sealed and freeze resistant, and I thought that would come in quite handy in the snow and the inclement weather. And secondly, if you're doing a low light test, as impressive as 1.4 is as an aperture, if you have a 1.2 option, why the heck not? let's try something different. The build quality, just like every other pro lens, is stunning. We have quite a metal build quality with a manual focus clutch. Yes, the Olympus 25mm is a lot bigger and heavier compared to some of the other 25mm on the Micro Four Thirds system, but I think given that I really wanted weather sealing and also freeze resistance and also that 1.2 aperture, the weight in this instance was well worth it for my needs. If it was more of a fair weather trip, I may lean on the Lumix Leica, but I wanted something super rugged for this and it was ideal. In terms of just snapping away in sort of more lifestyle photos rather than the specific low light stuff, this lens and the next lens in the list were ideal because we do have reliable autofocus, a fast enough aperture, and that means that if the ISO creeps up a bit, it's not the end of the world. So I had a really good time just using this as like a day-to-day lens as well, even though it's probably overkill and a bit spenny for that scenario. I don't mind. I enjoyed it. And if any of these lenses have caught your eye, make sure to check out MPB and see what they can do for you. MPB is the world's largest platform for buying, selling and trading all of your photography equipment. Every single piece of equipment is hand checked and the photographs on the website are the ones that you will get. So it's actually that model, so you can check out all of the cosmetic conditions before you commit to buying. And when you do, for a bit of peace of mind, you get a 6-month warranty as well. So nothing to lose, everything to gain. We're helping the environment with our circular buying, not buying new all the time. And we're getting bargains as well. And I love a bargain. So check out MPB. I have links for UK, EU and US in my description. And it really does help the channel if you do want to get something via these links because it shows MPB that I'm doing a good job. So huge thank you to MPB for sponsoring this video and let's get back to the nerdiness. Next, of course, if size is more of a factor for you, this is a great choice, the 15mm Lumix Leica f1.7. It's quite funny to me that f1.7 is a slow lens in this list comparatively, but it is what it is. I brought this for my everyday, day-to-day needs, and I thought the focal length being sort of a 30mm full frame equivalent and being a little bit wider might come in handy as well for certain scenarios. And I do think this lens is one shining example in the Micro Four Thirds system where we do have a very compact setup that is very, very sharp and pretty decent in low light too. This is a lens that is handy for day-to-day stuff. I often pair it with my GM5 when I'm home and just use that as like an everyday carry sort of thing. But having that be good in low light as well, it's always worth it. And because it was so small, I threw it in as a just in case, and I got some great photos with it on this trip, if I do say so myself. While of course it is an apples to oranges sort of comparison, I think it's quite interesting now that on the used market, the Olympus 25mm f1.2 Pro and the Lumix Leica 15mm f1.7 are quite similarly priced. Now, there are pros and cons to both. You have a wider aperture, a bigger, heavier lens, but you do have weather sealing, etc. on the Olympus, versus something small and compact, a little bit slower at f1.7, how will we ever cope, on the Lumix Leica side. So yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. I was expecting the 25mm Pro to be way more expensive than this, but yeah, both of them are quite well priced on the used market. Always nice. Next, we have the most affordable lens on this list, and that is the TT Artisan 50mm f1.2. This is one part of a set of trio lenses. We have a 17mm f1.4, and then a 35mm f1.4, and then the 50 f1.2. It was the f1.2 that drew me to this lens for these needs, and I thought it might be quite nice to have a quite unconventional, longer focal length to play with while I was in Norway. Of course, it's not the most versatile lens in the world at that focal length, but at f1.2, it's pretty nice. I think you can get the whole set of 3 lenses for like 250 quid. So super affordable. And if you are looking for some fun lenses to play with, they are manual focus, they are metal build quality, they have really nice clicky apertures. And what I like about the design is the aperture ring is right on the top of the lens, so you don't accidentally hit it all the time like you do with some other lenses. If you want a fun experimental set of lenses that are very good in low light, you can't go far wrong with the TT Artisan set. One fun benefit for this lens, and also a few in this lineup, is the metal build quality was hold to focus with. Now, if you're shooting with the Olympus 1.2, which is autofocus, it's fine, you don't have to deal with it. But if you are using the metal build quality lenses in cold weather, and you're having to really intricately get your focus, it was a little bit cold on my fingies. Next, we have the Olympus 8mm f1.8 Pro fisheye lens, and this is a D light. Again, with it being Pro, it is freeze and weatherproof, which is always handy, and it's one of those lenses that is super duper sharp and really, really sharp all the way to the corners, so if you don't want that barrel distortion and the fisheye look, you can sort of change it in Lightroom to make it more rectilinear. This lens is the unfortunate combination of being both still pretty expensive and quite niche. Me being a cheapskate at heart, I don't mind paying for an expensive lens if it's versatile and I can use it in a number of different ways. Like the Olympus 25mm f1.2, for example, you can use it as a walkabout lens, but it's rugged enough to use in the snow. Whereas the fisheye lens, it's a very, very stylized look, isn't it? And if you want that ultra wide look, or that fisheye look in particular, this is the best one on the system by a mile. And then we have the delicious Lumix Leica Nocticron 42.5mm f1.2. I'm about 70% sure I pronounced that correctly. This is a beaut. It's absolutely incredible and probably one of the most well thought of portrait lenses in the Micro Four Thirds system. This is a lens that I used to rent for wedding photography a couple of times back in the day because it is a delight and I couldn't afford one. So renting was the way to go. Much like this trip, to be honest, MPB sent me this on loan so I could go play with this lens in the snow. Thank you, MPB. This lens is stunning as a portrait lens, but also with it having a 1.2 aperture and also being super sharp because it's a Leica branded lens, I thought it would be great in low light. And of course, it is. It is bewilderingly not weather sealed, given that it's a fancy pants lens, and it annoys me to no end when this happens. Like, just give me all of the features if we're paying all this money. Do you know what I mean? But then again, I suppose it's designed to be an excellent portrait lens, which may not often need to be weather sealed. So I do get it. I do get it. It's my fault here because I'm using it probably outside of its intended purpose. But I think if you're getting a fancy lens, like all of the Olympus Pro lenses are weather sealed. So I think it should be the same on the Lumix Leica side. Some are, some aren't. This isn't. It impressed me now as it did then, and it is one of the nicest, sharpest, fastest lenses on the system. If you got a little bit of money to spare, because it's still around 500 quid used, which is still good, you know, given it's a Lumix Leica lens, but also it's not weather sealed, it's quite niche. If you're into portraiture, this is the one to go for. Not the most versatile in the world, but absolutely gorgeous. So if you enjoyed this low light extravaganza, check out this video next where I used live composite mode to get some astrophotography and star trails and light trails in the city as well. It's a really fun, creative video that's less gear focused and more pew 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 focused. So watch it next.